Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 65 of the Self-Publishing Roundtable, the podcast by indie authors for indie authors. I am your host, Wade Finnegan, and my co-hosts for this evening are Kevin Michael, as always in the
Hey,
dark, John Ward, Carl Sinclair, who's trying to look smart with
Hello
glasses,
there, my friends. How are you?
and Trish McAllen. Hello,
Who
Trish.
always looks smart because she always wears
Uh,
glasses, right?
that's right, that's right. Our extra special guest tonight is Robert Crane. Robert is a urban fantasy author with a lot of success and a wealth of knowledge. And he has over 20 books to his name and some really cool insights on marketing and things like that. So we invited him on the show to share those. Robert, thank you for coming on.
hey, no problem. Glad to be here.
All right. So, oh yeah, shock. The shock and awe will be at the end of the show, so you guys have to wait around for that. So, all right, who wants to start us off with a line of questioning tonight? Trish, Kevin, who wants to go?
Why don't we go ahead and
I-
have Robert kind of give the backstory behind his publishing? I read up what happened on your blog, and it's very, very interesting. I think our viewers would really like to see what happened there.
Okay, I'll try and do the thumbnail version. So, like probably a lot of people were, I was in a career that was really frustrating and was going backward really quickly during the economic recession a few years ago. And I had started writing a story in my spare time, and I wrote like 180,000 words over the course of 3 months, just trying to fit it in around work. So. I couldn't get it out of my head. I was just obsessed with the idea of telling this story, and so I started looking into, how do you become a published writer? And of course, I found out all about how advances work and how the average was like 5,000, and you get it at 33% of the time. And I mean, I just vetoed that right out because the first part is query an agent. If you find an agent, then you've got to go through the submission process, and if you get a submission, then you might get $5,000. I'm like, oh, this sounds like the sort of hobby that's going to cost me a lot of money, so no. How about that? I'd like to improve my circumstances, not make them worse, by working for less than minimum wage. So about 6 months later, I still couldn't get this story out of my head. And so I looked again, because I couldn't stop myself from writing. And I found Amanda Hawking's story, I found Conrad's blog, and 2 months later, I talked to my wife, and I'm like, I quit my financial services business and started writing part-time while I had one of my kids home with me. And by the end of the next year, I'd made $12.25, and I convinced her, as a great salesman, that I should do this full-time. And started making a living by the end of that year, and it's been steadily up since. So 350,000 books later, we're rocking along, and it's going well.
Now, when you say you couldn't get the story out of your head, are you referring to the Girl in the Box series or the Sanctuary series?
That's actually the Sanctuary series. I couldn't stop writing it, and I still can't.
Now, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Sanctuary series? Give us like the elevator pitch for the listeners.
Yeah, it's a high fantasy story, kind of in the vein of all high fantasy stories, which means it shares elements of Lord of the Rings. A warrior who wields a sword enters a world of magic, of elves, of dragons, of all that fun stuff. And I guess the twist to it is the prologue and epilogue of each book take place 8 years from the start of the first book, and he's in his home, and it's completely destroyed. And every book is a flashback that we're slowly catching up to the present, but it each takes a year out of time out of his life and covers an adventure that he and his friends have had. And anyway, I don't know. I'm probably not doing a great job selling it. That's why I wrote the last book in the series was 306,000 words. So
Wow.
yeah. So elevator pitch, I'm sucking at it because
Well, I've noticed that writers can write hundreds of pages, but they tend to be not amazingly good at writing like 100-word blurbs sometimes.
oh. Yeah.
But
then it's suicide watch time. It's like,
you want me to condense my work?
Which is kind of the downfall of traditional publishing, because they rely on those real short, wordy little blurbs, and most writers might be phenomenal writers, but they can't convey that in such a short space of time.
Sure. Well, and even worse, I mean, how many traditional publishing books have you read where you read the blurb and after you've read the book, you're like, none of this happened in the book. Like, did anyone read this before they wrote the blurb? What the?
Yeah.
The other series I want to mention is the Girl in the Box series, which has 10, I saw, has 9 sequels. And it has a really great hook. Do you want to tell the readers what the hook is for Girl in the Box?
Sure. This girl wakes up one day after being trapped in her house, imprisoned in her house for about a decade by her mother. Her mother disappears, and one day she wakes up and there's 2 guys in her house. And so she's forced to escape, and she starts to find out she's got powers, and there are secrets and mysteries. And sorry, that was supposed to be just a sinister laugh overall, and I totally failed it. Sorry about that. The first 3 books in that series are actually free, so if you weren't totally put off by my salesmanship job.
I will be immediately reading them after the show because of your sales job.
Oh, thank you.
If the salesmanship is not enough, Robert is dominating the subcategory of superheroes, much to the chagrin of the other superhero writers. But the first thing I want to go into is I know that you're a big advocate of free books because you have the first 3 free in the one series, and you have a free book in the Sanctuary series as well. Do you do anything to promote the free books, or do you just kind of let them ride perma-free?
First of all, I'm just going to take off my reading glasses because I was just trying to be cool like you guys. I can mostly somewhat see without them. Do I do anything to promote them? I did a book bub this last week that pushed my rankings. But other than that, I'm a big advocate of low-impact marketing. I try and do as little as possible in terms of things like I've never done a blog tour. I've done very few interviews, like maybe 5 total. I mean, my number one move is perma-free and get it out to as many people as possible. I just try and get it to the sites like Pixel of Ink used to be, or eReader News Today, or currently BookBub, to just boost it every once in a while and keep following it up with regular releases in the series to try and keep yourself buoyed in the rankings and let Amazon's discoverability work for you as best you can.
Yeah, I have a follow-up on the BookBub. You said you did a free run on BookBub. Do you find that BookBub is still as effective with sell-through from a free book to the other paid books in the series?
I have really good luck. My sell-through is usually pretty high, yeah. I've heard other people talk about that too, and my answer to that would be you'd see it probably by the end of if you read Girl in the Box 1. It really, I mean, I don't spare the cliffhangers at the end of those books, and I know some readers don't like it, but there are a lot of readers who really do. They get to the end, and if you twist hard, and I'm not talking about something shallow like, oh my goodness, she's hanging on the edge of the cliff by her fingernails. Will she make it to next week? It's got to be something deeper, and not something shallow and thin like that. It's got to be something that really twists, that puts a fundamental change up in the structure of the story or in the emotions of the characters, something that really makes the reader want to keep going. And I've noticed, my sell-through tends to be higher reported, I mean over 10% in a lot of cases, versus what I hear other authors talk about.
You actually just answered the question I was going to ask you, and that was whether when you're actually writing your books or writing your series, do you engineer the stories to try to pull the readers through? Now, obviously, you're doing that with your cliffhangers. Are you doing that with any other things as well? Like if you're spinning a story off, or you have a series that you're going to spin off, do you engineer something in the spin-off story to try to bring the readers from your other stories over?
I guess the best way I can try and answer it. I'm sorry, I just had like a thing pop up that said 9 chat messages. I'm like, oh, am I supposed to be taking? Is someone trying to send me a message like, Robert, shut up, right now? If it's not important, I can just leave those off for later. But anyway, so sorry, your question. What I do when I'm writing the books to try and draw people through to additional volumes, I'm a breadcrumb writer. I think my friend Danica Dark used that phrase, and I think it fits pretty well. Where I just leave little details. I mean, Girl in the Box is a really tightly plotted series. I mean, it was a 10-book series where a little bit of a mystery gets revealed. I mean, there's a plot in every book that's self-contained, but there's a mystery, a bigger overall mystery that gets revealed throughout the series. And it's the same thing with the Sanctuary series and same thing with my Southern Watch series. And so I dangle these little breadcrumbs. I leave them behind. And they're things that readers probably won't even catch necessarily on the first time. They might go, oh, that's a little weird. What is that? And hopefully you'll draw them through, you know, as you go, little things that they can pick up. And then, yeah, you set the big hooks, you know, at the beginning or end of every chapter to try and keep them running. Did that answer your question, Trish? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it did. It did. The cliffhanger answered the majority of it, so you'd already answered it before I even asked.
Okay, good.
I have another follow-up on your free books. I was wondering what made you decide to put the first 3 books in the series perma-free, as opposed to just having the first book free?
I actually had the first book perma-free for the longest time, and it was doing well for me, and I'd hit kind of a plateau, and things were going, you know, decently well. I couldn't complain. But I was talking to a friend of mine, S.M. Rain, who's a phenomenal author, phenomenal person, and she was just absolutely killing it. I mean, like I was totally in envy of what she was doing, and we were talking, and she goes, you know, probably the only reason I'm doing better than you at this point is because I got more perma-frees than you do. And that was kind of an eye-opener for me because I was like, oh, really? You know, how do you, you know, I mean, because ultimately what you want is eyeballs on your work. I mean, if you've got a free intro to the series, then you want to get as many eyeballs on it as you can and hope that they'll carry through to the rest of the series. Well, another friend of mine, Ed Robertson, I want to give him credit. I'm not trying to name drop here, but I totally am.
Man, you're like name dropping the whole K-Boards lineup.
The thing is, he has this great point. He says, you know, if you want to make it appealing to a reader, make it as painful as possible to the author, because we don't really like to give our work away for free. We don't like to feel like we're you know, we're just giving away the farm. But the truth is, if you want bigger exposure, people are more likely to look at a 3-box set perma-free than they are a 1-box, you know, a 1-book perma-free. And so, I mean, I just looked at it, you know, can this buoy what I'm already doing, and boy, did it. It did really well. That's probably something I've heard before, though.
Ed had a lot of success when he put Breakers 1 through 3 at 99 cents for a long period of time. It was at the top of those subcategories for about 6 or 7 months at around 200-300 in the store. Didn't really go over about 1,000 in the store. It was a pretty successful run for him. Yeah,
he killed it. He absolutely killed it.
So you mentioned Ed Roberts and S.M. Rain. Do you have anything from Lindsay Buroker?
Yeah, she's the one who actually. I don't know her personally. Like, unlike them, I don't know her, but I've been a huge fan of her blog. But she's the one who I read her blog, and she was talking about perma-free, and that was what made me decide to put my first 2 books, or my first book in each of my series, to start out with perma-free. And as a result of that, I went from making. I think the month before I set my first book in the Sanctuary series perma-free, I think I made like $100, and 3 months later, when I set the first book in Girl in the Box perma-free, I mean, it was my first 5-figure month, first 4-figure month, and you know, never looked back since. Hit 5 figures the first time a couple months later, or a month later. So
earlier you said that your series are tightly plotted. So I take it that you're not a discovery writer or a pantser?
No, I sit kind of in the middle of the continuum. It's just that when it comes to plotting a series, I know some of the major points that happen throughout. But I mean, when it comes to the day-to-day, I don't know. I don't have a plan for everything that's going to happen. Like I'm writing a 3rd book in my Southern Watch right now, and I know how it's going to end, but I'm not really that sure how I'm going to get there, and it's causing me to have fits. So no, I do both. I plot and pants.
Can you describe how you plot out? Because most of the people we talk to they're just right by the seat of their pants.
I start with the theme of the book. So, for example, first book in Girl in the Box is alone. So the theme was the heroine. We open on her and she's alone, and all of a sudden she's not alone. There are two guys in her house, and so everything to do with the plot extends out from the theme. And every choice I make from there is designed to isolate her and kind of harp on the theme a little bit more as best I can without taking out a hammer and beating the reader over the head with it. Although some of them might need that. Anyway. So, I mean, when it comes to the process, it's really just what can I do that's going to help play up the theme? What can I do that's going to help increase the resonance with the characters and basically drive home the emotion of the story? And so if you've got some of the high points, like I might know the beginning, the middle, and the end, like what's the midpoint, where is this going to turn, if it's going to turn, what is going to be the major conflict for the character, then that when you apply that and the theme together, then that's all I need, and I can start, and I can just, it's kind of like writing from buoy to buoy if you're following navigational beacons or whatever. I don't know, that's a shit metaphor, but.
So would you say that you use beat sheets then? Is that what you're describing?
No, actually, I had never read that. You're talking about the Blake, what's his name, Blake Snyder or whatever.
Save the Cat.
Yes,
Yeah,
Save the
there's
Cat.
a lot of people.
I just read that this year. I had never read it before. So I do apply it now more, but I didn't when I started. It was a subconscious thing, right? You watch enough movies, you kind of get a feel for how things go, but I didn't really have the words for it at that point. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds like you were kind of picking it up on instinct and then applying it to your work before you even read the book. That actually brings up kind of an interesting point, is on your advice for indie authors, which, by the way, I have to admit that I absolutely loved. It's very rare to see such honest, open advice, especially the part about, learning your craft and I mean, basically what you're talking about there is carrying your readers through by making them, attached to the main characters and invested in what's going on. So I just want to compliment you on that because it's kind of refreshing to see that kind of advice given towards indie authors.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it was Kevin that mentioned the K-Board's lineup earlier. Not necessarily the sort of thing we always talk about as indie authors in public forums, is it?
No, it's not very, very often talked about at all. In fact, it's quite often the opposite. Just put stuff up as fast as you possibly can, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of thought given to the actual, character-driven and reader investment to the story. But the sell-through rate that you're talking about on permafree, I mean, it's essential that you have that to sell the books. So permafree won't work if people don't care about what's happening to the characters in book one. So yeah. Obviously you're doing it right to have a 10% sell-through on free.
May it ever be so.
Now, but this brings me to another question. So permafree sounds like that was a major turning point in your career, was the permafree books. Have you tried any of the box sets? That seems to be a real hit and miss for a lot of indie authors. Have you had any luck with those?
You mean like
multi-author box sets?
I've been in 3 of them, and yeah, I can almost guarantee that the one I'm in with my Sanctuary series, that I'm in with some other authors, including Ed Robertson and some other high fantasy authors, that actually I think has increased the sales of my Sanctuary series, which has always been my lesser performing series. So I think it can. Obviously, it's going to depend on what your exposure is for it. That box set has done really well. It's managed by the stellar Phoenix Sullivan. She just
yeah.
And I'm in one now with Mimi Strong, who's just again, phenomenal manager, knows her marketing, knows how to get the book in front of people. So I mean, if you've got someone who knows what they're doing and can blow that exposure to a wide angle and get it to a bunch of people, yeah, I think those box sets, the multi-author boxes, are a fantastic way to promote your work. Absolutely fantastic. I've had great experiences with the 3 I've been in. I've been kind of choosy about it. I mean, because I've been offered more than 3, and it's not a shot at anyone who's offered me one, and maybe I've turned them down. I only really want to work with the people I'm very comfortable with, because not only are you dealing with some money, and you have to be able to trust the person who's administrating it, but you also, I mean, essentially are putting your professional image out there, I guess you could say. And badly run box is the kind of advertising that you maybe don't want to have behind your name, right? So, so yeah, I think they can be great if they're done right. If they're done poorly, then you see negligible effect or none or worse. So I've been lucky. I haven't had the bad side of it. I've had great experiences.
Well, that's good.
Robert, what would you say? I'm sorry, I'm cutting off. Did I cut Kevin off?
No, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Rich.
What would you say is the good time frame for releasing? Because you've released so many books. Have you played around with time spans for once a month, 2 months, 3 months, that sort of thing?
I've released more than 1 book a month, and I've seen. Well, I shouldn't say that. Earlier this year, I did release more than 1 book in a month, and you used to be able to, track. Amazon would send out mailers, and you'd see the spikes when they'd send out the mailers, like to people who bought your work in the past, and you'd see it and it'd be like, oh, Amazon sent out their mailer, because your ranks would go, through the roof on a Saturday or a Tuesday or a Thursday. And they don't do it quite like that anymore, I don't think. They kind of spread it out more now, a lot more evenly, so you don't see those spikes like you used to, or at least I haven't noticed.
I kind of suspect that doesn't work at all anymore, because I've signed up for those mailers for authors that I read, and I've never gotten one of them.
Oh no, I'm not talking about the thing on like the author page.
Oh, I see what you mean.
What would happen is, like for example, my wife had downloaded a couple of my books free at one point in time, and so the normal Amazon cycled emails that they send out, if you haven't opted out of their communications, they're going to say, you might be interested in, whatever, and you'll wake up in the morning and it'll be sitting in your inbox. And so they send those out. They used to send them out on a cycle, and it would be like a Tuesday, a Thursday, and a Saturday, and they dump thousands of them to people who had bought your work in the past, and it would produce a big damn spike. And they don't really do that anymore. So the wisdom was, at the beginning of the year, I did that. I released a couple of books in the same month, and the spike disappeared for the second book. Like, it just didn't happen. And so from that, I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't release more than 1 book a month anymore, and haven't for a while. But about April, May, they smoothed that spike out. They started sending them a little more off time, so you wouldn't see that giant jump like you used to. I don't think. I don't watch it as closely as smarter people than me watch it. And so you might be able to get away with releasing like multiple books in a month now. And frankly, we're moving to a point where I think serials are going to get a lot more traction, and it's going to become completely irrelevant if it already hasn't. So in terms of times of release, the best time to release a book is when you got a book done. That'd be basically my answer at this point. Just get another book out there as fast as you can. Try not to botch the launch, but I always tell people that my book alone sold 42 copies between when I released it in April of 2012 and I set it perma-free in August of that year. And since then, the series has sold like 300,000 copies. So you can recover from a bad launch. And it's not really how you start necessarily. You want to do it as best you can, but if you screw it up, it's not the end of the world. You can recover from it. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah. And so what's your typical writing day look like, since you're trying to pump out these books so fast?
It really depends. It used to be probably a lot more exhausting than it is right now. I've released 6 books so far this year, and the 7th is ready to go, but it's stuck on pre-order until November 4th. And then I've got almost 80% of another one done and about half of another one done. So I think I'll probably hit about 10 this year. I usually, on the days when I am actively writing, I'll write between 5,000 and 6,000 words a day. Sometimes I'll spike up to 10. Um, but again, I'm full-time. I've been doing it for a while. My editing process is a lot lighter now than it was when I first started out. So, I mean, process is going to be individual to every writer. That's just kind of how I do it. Do what works for you. Indie authors who are listening, don't listen to me and think that, oh my God, I'm doing 1,000 words a day. This is terrible. Oh, I'm the worst. You know.
So that looks like it's a schedule of about 12 books a year. Is that about what you're doing then? If you've got 6 books already launched out, with 2 pretty close. How many books?
If I didn't write giant epic fantasy door stoppers, I think you would be right on that one, Trish. But unfortunately, I do. So one of those books that's half done is at 90,000 words, and it's probably going to be about 220 to 250. So yeah, it's going to be about 10 books this year if I can manage to pull it off.
At over 100,000 words per book. That's a lot of words.
Not all of them are. I'd say the majority of the books I released this year were probably 90,000 on average. So, with one being a lot smaller, 1 or 2 of them were like 60,000, and one of them is going to be 200,000+. You know, millstone.
So, what about your pricing strategy here? I know you've got the first ones perma-free. Do you have, like, the next book then? What price do you set those at, and then do you jump it up for the later books in the series?
No, I mean, I pretty much stick at $4.99 for everything. $4.99 in the U.S., $2.99 in the U.K., £2.99, whatever they call it. And the only books that vary from that at all are the first in my Southern Watch series is 99 cents, and it'll be perma-free here in the next few weeks when the 3rd book comes out in that set. I have a short story collection for $2.99 because it doesn't sell squat. And then that 300,000 word book is at $7.99, and it actually makes more money than book 2 of that series. So there actually might be an argument for up-pricing later books in the series if there's a value argument to be made along with it. Like if all your books are 90,000 words and you suddenly raise book 4 to $5.99 or $6.99, I think the fans are going to feel screwed. But maybe not. So anyway, did that answer your question at all?
Yeah, it did. Kind of to add a little bit more to that, when you're launching a book, do you drop the price on the other books in that series through the launch, like for the first week or the first 2 weeks before you raise them back up? I've seen a lot of authors doing that lately. Wondered if you've tried that.
I'm about to launch the sequel series to Girl in the Box, called Out of the Box, because I'm really creative, And that one I'm going to launch at 99 cents. Mostly because I wanted to carry over the audience from Girl in the Box right to the new series. I made an artistic, aka stupid business decision to end that successful series and make a clean break and move to the next series. It actually was an artistic decision, but at the same time, the business owner part of me is like, you're a moron. You have wasted our branding. You're a jackass. What the heck were you thinking? And so, I mean, it's one of those things where, no big deal. I priced that one at 99 cents for the first week. As a lot of indie authors do with their new releases, in order to try it out. I probably won't do that in future volumes. I mean, it's a good way to build exposure, I think. The aforementioned Ed Robertson has done it in the past. Just discount it for the first week or so. I think I did. I did that on the first of my Southern Watch books while I was trying to get exposure for it. But for the most part, I don't. And again, if it's one of those things where you need more exposure, that'd be a great way to do it. If you're doing all right and you feel good about how those launches are going, you don't necessarily need to fiddle with it in an established series, I don't think. But yeah, it's a great, as near as I can tell, great results if you are looking to boost the reach. Sorry.
Okay, we have a couple of questions from the live chat over on the website, Robert. The first one's from Tucker, and he said, I'm curious how you manage projects. Do you work on one project book at a time? Do you juggle different projects and series? How do you go about doing that? I
juggle, and I wish I didn't juggle. That one book I was telling you about, the Fifth Sanctuary book, that's at 90,000 words. I started it last December, and I've written in 7, 8, 9 books. I don't even know how many. So I mean, I juggle. Right now, the main project I'm working on is Southern Watch #3, and I started it in March or April. Put it down in May because I needed about a month vacation. I pushed myself to the over the limit. So I mean, I'm constantly juggling projects. You know, I'll take one, I'll send it. You know, I'll write it. I'll finish the first draft. Do the second draft real quick where I touch it up and edit it. Throw it off to my editors or beta readers, depending on what place in this cycle I am at that point. And I'm on to something else if I'm not taking a week off. I got to go work on the next thing and keep it in motion. So I mean, if I'm going to work, I'm going to work as best I can. So if something is not in my hands, I'm not going to sit around and wait for my editor to get done with it. I've got to get on with the next thing. I can't just wait around for it, if that makes sense. So I mean, I always try and be working on something. That said, I'm gonna in the future. I mean, I'd had like 4 projects up on my board. I'm never doing that again. I mean, 2 at a time is enough. It takes up mental space and it messes with my head when I'm not completing something because I get a rush out of getting it done. It's like, yeah, let's cross that bad boy off. Finished.
From my sorry, carry on. I was going to say, as a fantasy reader and writer myself, I have a pretty bad case of world builder's disease, which if people out there don't know what that is, it's obsessively world building fantasy worlds, and I imagine that you've had the same problem, being that you're writing the same kind of stuff to some extent anyway. And I felt when I was doing more than one thing that I would be off-world building something over here and then pulling stuff out of other series to fit into the one I'm writing, and it just became like a big cycle of doing stuff that I shouldn't be doing, I guess. So I tried now to focus on one thing. I wonder how much trouble you've had with obsessively world-building fantasy worlds, because I know that I do.
It's a real problem. I mean, and especially when you've got 2 or 3 projects in motion at a time. You get through the sexy, first 10, 20, 30,000 words of a project, and all the excitement and shiny newness wears off, and it's the slog through the middle part, so you can get to the exciting part again at the end. And I mean, hopefully it's not a slog to the readers. If it's a slog to the readers, then you're doing it wrong. But it's the less thrilling part once you've gotten the thing off the ground. You're a pilot, it's on autopilot, and you're just cruising along. And all of a sudden, those other projects that you're world building in your head start to look a lot more interesting than the one you've got sitting on your computer that you're staring at with that little cursor blinking at you like it's an accusing glare. And so, yeah, I know, I totally agree with that. You start working on too many projects, for me, just me personally, maybe other people can manage it better. Yeah, I got to get things done. If I don't get something done, if it lingers too long, it gets painful after a while. I mean, it's almost like an infection or an abscess you got to clear. Wow. You can tell I'm an epic fantasy writer. I don't hesitate to go into the gross stuff, George R. R. Martin style. But yeah, no, I absolutely. I mean, and especially for a beginning writer, that is the disease that keeps people from finishing novels. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I've had it really bad. A massive abscess. Just to use your metaphor. Go ahead, Trish. I think you had something.
Yeah, I had a question from Kate. She wants to know whether you're on all the platforms, how widely distributed are your books, and what kind of calls to action do you use, and what have you found the most effective way to use them?
I am on all the platforms presently. I mean, all the major ones anyway. I mean, I've even got my books directly in the Smashwords store. So you can tell I take it very seriously. Sorry. Sorry. No, I'm on all the platforms. Google, everything, from Amazon on down. The second part of that question was, what is the calls to action I use?
Yeah.
Usually, I've been really bad about going back and updating books because I don't want to do that, and it sounds like a lot of work, and and it's not writing work. So I usually just put a teaser for the next book in the series in the back of the book, and a lot of times I'll put like a listing of here are the other books I have out at the time. And I mean, up until now, you could go into probably the second book of Girl in the Box right now, and you'll see like all it says is that Girl in the Box 3 is out, and that's it. And so, I mean, in terms of a call to action, the biggest thing I do is push them to my mailing list, and then try and push them to the next book in the series, knowing that at least that will hopefully be out by the time that they're reading it, or at least that'll be the next book in the series that'll be out when they're reading that volume. And so, mailing list is the big one, because I mean, you can't rely on Amazon or Apple or Google or anyone else to let your readers know when your next book is out. And if you've spent all this time and possibly advertising dollars getting this person to read your book, and they're interested and they want to read the next one, my God, get their name on a list so that you can let them know when that book is out, because, you know, they want your book and you want their dollars, so, you know, make it simple. So that's the biggest call to action for me. That said, I am going back and redoing my books right now in order to put a listing of, like, here are all of the series books that are available right now, and then I probably won't update them again for another freaking 3 years or something like that.
Now, do you do anything specifically to try to encourage people to sign up for your list? I know a lot of people will give away free content if readers sign up for it. There's stuff that only their readers can get through the mailing list. Have you tried anything like that to drive traffic there?
No, I just write really evil cliffhangers and say that I don't set release dates for my books. So you might want to sign up for the mailing list, or you're probably not going to find out what happens next.
That'll do it.
That's one way of dealing with it, I guess.
That's almost evil. I like it.
Well, he did say evil. He said evil cliffhanger, so.
Kevin,
Yeah,
you got
I think
questions?
Kevin.
Yes. You meant. Oh, sorry. Go, Carl.
I was going to say, maybe I'm regretting downloading the first 3 books of the series just now. If you're going to be doing this to me, I can't be dealing with those kind of like heartaches.
Just take a hit. Just take a hit, Carl. First hit's free.
Well, he
Damn
does
it.
have 7
You've got-
more books in the series already written and published, so.
That's true. That'll take me through the end of the week. So.
Just line them all up on the desk and.
Have at 'em.
All right, carry on, Kevin. Sorry for interrupting you.
So, I have a question about Kindle Unlimited, because I know that you're on all the platforms, and I was wondering, since it's the Kindle Unlimited apocalypse, if it has affected your sales, if you've possibly decided to maybe release one of your books in the future exclusive to KU, or if you're just pooping your pants, or what, or is there everything's going along exactly as usual?
I actually had this discussion with some friends of mine, and I had heard rumblings that sales were down. I had my best month ever in August, so I mean, but I also released the 10th book in the Girl in the Box. So far this month, sales are still pretty high, but again, I had a book bub, so I'm not really positioned to be able to tell. The third thing is about 60% of my sales on any given month are on Amazon.uk, and they just got KU this month, or I think today or yesterday they just got it. So
It was this
I
week,
mean,
a couple of days ago.
yeah. So I mean, and here's what I'd say about it. No, I'm not planning to write for KU at this time. If you know, in 6 months, you know, I'm sitting here and my income is down 50%. Then yeah, you're gonna catch me with the bandaged wrists, and I'll be like, no, I'll write serials just for you, Amazon. Because up until my book bub this month, Amazon's 90% to 95% of my sales on any given month. So that said, I don't really want to be exclusive to them. I don't like the KU program. I don't think it's good for authors in the long term, not for their incomes. I shouldn't say that. It doesn't work for my business model. Perma-free followed by what I consider reasonably priced at $4.99 follow-up volumes. And so I go into KU with my books, and instead of $3 per subsequent sale, all of a sudden I'm getting $1.50 based on the borrow rate last month. Yeah, no, I don't really want a 50% income cut. Yeah, I know. don't. Good luck finding anybody who really wants to do the same amount of work but for half the money. So I mean, the answer is obvious in this case. If Kindle Unlimited does become the KU apocalypse, write a bunch of serials. There's always going to be a way to sell fiction for money. So I'm not crapping my pants over it or anything like that. But I'm aware of the situation, and if it moves in that direction, yeah, I'll write 20, 30,000 word serials, downprice them to $2.99, appeal to the KU market. Unfortunately, maybe someday abandon the other retailers. I like the other retailers. I mean, I have contact with some of the people at the other retailers, and they've been very good to me. And it would not be a personal decision to abandon anyone else. It would be I would really like to still be a full-time author, and the market is changing, and if I need to change with it, then I'm going to change with it. That's just the way it is. But no, I don't like KU. I'm not a fan of KU, and I kind of hope that Amazon lets it die, but I kind of feel that they're going to do that.
Now I wanted to go back for a second because you've mentioned keyboards and a couple people on keyboards in the past. One thing I've noticed, and you also mentioned that your first month you made $12. I noticed
6 months.
Oh, first 6 months you made $12. Sorry, my mistake. I've noticed that you went on a very steady climb. To a couple thousand to 10,000 to many more than 10,000. For beginning authors, what was that point where it kind of snowballed, and did it correspond with a certain book being released in a series or?
Yeah, no. So what it was, because I mentioned, and you've mentioned, I had 2 series. I was running them both kind of as a horse race. The Sanctuary series was my epic fantasy. The Girl in the Box series is more contemporary fantasy, takes place in a world very similar to ours. So in my opinion, it connects with a wider audience because not everyone's going to be down for elves and were-goblins and all that fun stuff that I like. And so I was running them as a horse race. They both came out. The first 3 books in the Sanctuary series came out, and then I released books 2 and 3 in the Girl in the Box. And this is 2012. I had set Sanctuary series free first, perma-free first, the first book. And I mean, I wasn't making a living wage off of it. And frankly, I wasn't making a living wage off the Sanctuary series until this year when things went fairly well for some reason. Girl in the Box, on the other hand, as soon as I set that sucker perma-free, that one took off because it got picked up by Pixel Ink. It got picked up by Reader News Today, and more people wanted to download it because I think it just, again, had a wider reach, wider audience, being urban fantasy than a fairly offbeat epic fantasy, which is what I write. And so that was really it for me. Once that series took off, I had been kind of spreading my efforts between the two. Well, again, Volume 3 of Sanctuary series came out in June of 2012. Volume 4 came out in August of last year, and it was huge. And I've written a couple of side volumes since then, but I've gone from book 3 to book 10 of Girl in the Box, and I've got the first book in the sequel series done in that same time frame. I said to my readers, hey, I love you guys. I love the Sanctuary series, and I'm going to continue to finish this story, this 8-volume massive story, and I'll even write some other stuff in there. But Girl in the Box is paying my bills, and I will be focusing on it. And I'm sorry if that makes anyone mad, but I want to tell stories. This is what I want to do for a living, and so this is what's going to get my focus. And as soon as I started focusing on it, and I regularly followed it up with additional installments, yeah, it took off running, and I was at least able to maintain, even though each subsequent book club ad or exposure or whatever event would get me less and less free downloads. The sell-through remained basically the same, and so I was able to, with additional volumes, maintain my income level once it reached a certain point, basically. That make sense?
Yes, it does. One more thing I wanted to ask you, knowing that you've sold like 350,000 books now, and that through the first 6 months you made $12, if you could talk to yourself from a couple years ago, what would you do different, if anything, at the beginning of the career that you know now?
I don't know that there would be that much I would do differently. When I got into this, and like I said at the top of the podcast, I quit my financial services business, which was not doing very well, and I talked to my wife about it, and I'm like, this is the deal. I'll stay home with this kid as a baby for the first year or even longer if need be, and write, because I looked at what Amanda Hocking and Conrath and others were saying, and basically they were saying, build a backlist, get a lot of books out there, get sell-through going. And so, I mean, I knew it was all about the long tail from the beginning, and I sold her on the idea that this was not going to take off right out of the gate. This is going to be a process that's going to take a while, and I mean, it's like any other business. You'll probably be in the red for the first few years. And so I knew that was going to happen starting out. I hoped for a huge, phenomenal, J.K. Rowling level success, but I was banking on it not being the case, and I was banking on the idea I'd eventually get up to 50 or 60 grand a year, and that would be a-okay. Because if I could write stories for a living and be in complete control of my time and not have someone else telling me what to do, that's like heaven to me. So I wouldn't change anything, because I basically stuck to the same plan. The only thing I changed was after I read Lindsay Broker's blog post on permafreeze, I set my books, that first book, Permafree, and I embraced that as, this is going to be my marketing strategy. This is going to be how I get my exposure, and because it totally fit with what I wanted to do, which is I don't want to market. I want to write books and keep writing books. So, is that did I just ramble?
No, I think you answered his question, and it kind of actually leads you into the next question I had. Now, you mentioned that your Girl in the Box series was doing better than the other one, so you decided to focus there, but you still intended to write within the other two series, or did you just have the one series out at that point?
I had two out at that time, and I've since added a third because I'm
third one.
A glutton for pain, I think. I don't know.
Okay, so that's actually my question. Do you have any intentions of building another series and letting one of these series die off, or anything like that? Are you planning on doing all three of them kind of simultaneously and just keep feeding those readers?
The most common thing I do in my spare time, and this is sad to admit, is I'll sit around and I just plot out my schedule for the next year. And I've done it about 50 different ways. And the cornerstone right now is the Out of the Box series, because I presume that it's going to do as well, or reasonably well, like Girl in the Box has done. And I'm going to try and it's kind of like pistons in a car. One's going to be up while one is down, especially if you're trying to support multiple series. So my idea at this point is I was going to try this year to support all three of them equally. And Girl in the Box, again, exploded. It went from a sales plateau to explode to a new heights around February or March. And so I probably have not done as good a job of balancing all three and writing, one book in each series, because I came out with 2 Sanctuary books this year. I came out with, actually, I have done a pretty good job of it so far. But yes, eventually I will. One of my series will come to an end. Southern Watch is set for 10 books. That's it. Sanctuary series is set for 8 books, which I think I might be able to finish it based on the size of the books by about 2016, 2018. And I'll be starting new series at some points because I've got other ideas and other stuff I want to write. And I started Southern Watch because I had this idea, again, that I really want to write this book, and I think it'd be a good fit for my fan base. And I don't do a lot of swearing in my other 2 series, and I really just wanted to let the F-bombs fly and express myself in the crudest, most profane possible ways, and use all these dirty ideas that I'd had forever that I couldn't shoehorn into either of my other 2 series because, never mind. Anyway, so yeah, I'll be writing other series at some point. I'm going to eventually come to an organic end on some of them, and it'll be a balancing act from there to try and do 1 or 2 or 3 series at a time, or probably 2 or 3 series at a time. I don't think I'd feel comfortable only doing 1.
Kind of switching focus a little bit here, I'm curious whether you've had any interest in your sub-rights. Have you had anybody come in to you asking for the rights, for translations or audio or movie rights, anything like that?
I've had a couple offers on the like film and TV. I don't know. I'm not just for me, I don't really want to do film and TV rights. I guess I'd accept all offers, and God knows if they come along with $10 million in a wheelbarrow. Yeah, I will sell out. You're damn right I will in a half a second. But every time I hear the offers that have come, they haven't been $10 million, and it's just been like, I don't really care. I'm doing well enough. I don't have to sell rights at this point. You might catch me desperate.
What about using the rights for yourself, like doing some translations or turning your books into audiobooks? Have you tried anything like that? Are you looking into anything like that?
I have 6 audiobooks on sale right now. I funded them myself. I did the whatever the option is. And everybody seems to have different experience with audio. Here's my problem with it. I think I've sold less than 1,000 audiobooks across those 6 titles in the last year. And so my biggest issue with audio at this point, and why I'm not doing any more right now, is not just because they cut royalties. Like, I had already canceled my audiobook program before that. It takes my time. It's less. It's more of an upfront cost to produce them than an ebook. So again, it's not the most efficient use of my time. And the third part of it is I have no control over pricing, and that drives me freaking nuts. Because the second book in the Sanctuary series cost me like $5,000 or something ridiculous like that. And again, the guy who did it did a phenomenal job. He's definitely worth the money. But I have no control over the pricing, and so I have no ability to do a loss leader on that series to get people to buy book 1 and then get them to pay full price for subsequent volumes like I can with my ebooks. And so for me, that element of control that I lack makes me look at the investment and say, even if it was $1,000 or $2,000, no, I don't really want to be in that element of the business right now. And I'm sure there's brilliant authors out there that maybe could convince me differently, but that lack of control pisses me off to the point where I know I'm not going to mess with that at this point in time. So. And then, no, I haven't done translations because God knows, I don't know what they'd be saying.
Yeah, that would take even more time actually getting the translations all worked out than what you're talking about with the audio, although you would have control over price.
Who would you trust in that case? That's my problem. Is it's like, someone could come along and be like, oh, I'm a brilliant Spanish speaker, I'm phenomenal at this, and they go and they write my book into Spanish, and for all I know, it could be like, Dick saw Jane, Jane saw Dick, Well, whatever.
Yeah, there's actual agencies that specialize in that now, and work with indie authors. Like Lisa Marie Rice used to be a translator and reach out to her old contacts and is doing basically an agency type translation service now. So there are places you can go now that will get it translated good for you, but they're also quite pricey. It's about $10,000 for a 100,000 word book. So.
Pass.
So if somebody had a question from Erica, or was that for Kevin?
No, that was different. Carl, you had a question from Darren, right?
Yeah. Darren had a question, I thought.
Yeah, I understand that you're a member of the Science Fiction Writers of America, Robert.
What?
Is that true?
No.
I'm
not. I'm not a published writer. They don't allow you unless you're a professional published writer. And because I've only sold 350,000 books on my own, I'm not a professional published writer to the SFWA. And I think, based on my sarcasm in my answer, you probably know exactly what I think of the SFWA.
Yeah, well, that was kind of where Darren was coming from, I think. He said, what do you think about them? Oh, they're out of touch.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are struggling. I know that they don't accept authors that are under the 47 North imprint either, even though some of those people have sold hundreds and hundreds of thousands of copies. So,
wow, that's...
You're kidding, they don't accept 47 North authors? They're probably outselling every single one of the other authors on there.
Oh, it's to do with, because of the rules and the way that it's historically been, you have to have been published in specific
markets,
approved markets.
Oh, okay. That sounds like the New York Times and the USA Today list.
You could theoretically sell short stories in, say, a couple of magazines for $100 that are covered, but if you've sold 150, 200, 300,000 ebooks, you might not necessarily be entitled to join. I just wondered. And Darren and I had talked about WFA in the past, so it was just interesting to see what your thoughts were on it.
I have a friend who was on the rules committee or something where they were trying to propose, maybe we should at least think about putting a vote to the members about whether indies could join under certain guidelines. Because the RWA, romance writers, a lot of my friends are romance writers, and they've been very indie friendly all along. And so the SWA is kind of like taking the opposite tack, and it's like they're trying to find every way they can to jam a stick in the eye of indies, just like, screw you guys. For a science fiction oriented group that's supposed to be all about the future, they are really good at burying their frickin' heads in the past. But that's just my soapbox in my opinion, based on what I've heard second, third hand, whatever. Anyway, so opinions of the author may not be reflective of anyone sane.
Now, going back to series for a second, as a person who has two different really long series, do you want to talk for a second about how important it is to have a series, and how when you release a new book in that series, it could help like all the previous books as opposed to writing standalones?
Yeah, and this is one of those things where, series versus standalone is a big argument, I think, in not necessarily indie circles, but in more like boards like K-boards. Yes, you're absolutely right. So I release a new book in my Girl in the Box series, book 10. All of a sudden, the perma-free front end of the series floats higher. Book 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 see boosted sales because someone looks at book 10 and maybe they go, well, I don't want to start at book 10 of this series. It doesn't make a ton of sense, and if I'm awake when I'm writing the descriptions, I usually put on there, this is book 10 of a tightly woven series. You might want to start with book 1, which is free. So yeah, you get the visibility boost from book 10. People see it on Amazon. They think it looks cool. They go back and they start with book 1, and you see the subsequent sales. I like that. I can't do standalones. Even though I have friends who've written standalones and who love writing standalones, I always used to joke I'm so bad at creating characters, that I pretty much just have to create a few and just stick with them for like 10 books or so because I don't really want to create anymore. Whereas other people I know are like, oh, I need new characters all the time. I'm sick of these people. I'm done with them after this book. I get that. I do, because I picture myself and then I picture the absolute opposite of what I am. But as an indie, if you want to make a living, you're a lot better off doing the series because of that sell-through effect. And also because when you get a book bub, instead of just, spending your... What does a book bub go for, like, because I only do the perma-free. What do, like, the full-price book bubs go for if you're selling a 99-cent
It depends on the genre, but if you're, like, a 99-cent, like, romance, off the top of my head, I think it's, like, $700 or something.
Okay, so you spend your $700 to take your $4.99 book down to a 99-cent book, and you're going to make that back because BookBub is great and they do that. But the problem is you're going to make that $700, and let's say you double it. You've made $1,400. I'm no math magician, but I think that's right. Anyway, the problem is once you are done selling that book, it's going to naturally float, back down into the, tens, 20,000s if it doesn't get sticky for some reason. And we all hope it does, but eventually it will. Objects in motion may stay in motion, but books in Amazon algorithms will eventually sink. That is just the fact of things. So eventually that balance is going to fade. And if you've only got that one book, sad to say, buying habits of current consumers, they don't move on to other series and other author books the way they may have back when Stephen King was building a career. We just don't see it like that anymore. And so having that series balance, if I'm going to spend $700 on an ad, I'd really like something so direct that they can just go right from the end of that book to the next one like that. And instead of making my $1,400 back, I'm going to make $2,100, $2,800. This is why I'm not a math magician. Anyway, you get the point.
The reason that that's true is, especially in epic fantasy or high fantasy, I'm a huge reader of that. We're used to that as readers. We have been from trade pub. That's what they've done for a long time. The reason it's epic fantasy is that those guys, going back to Tolkien and pretty much everyone since, has written 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14 book series with the same characters, and that's what we're used to. Now, obviously, if people are buying those books on Amazon, they're the same readers that have been accustomed to that for a long time, so they're always going to support a longer series, and people like returning to those characters. I mean, I've talked to other readers and fantasy writers in the past. I've been big fans of things like Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series. I struggled through the middle 3 or 4 books of that series of 14 books, but I kept reading because I loved those characters, and you kind of forgave some of the fact that nothing happened for 4 books. I think 3 books covered a 2-3 week period or something, and that's a couple of thousand pages of nothing happening. But you keep reading because you love those characters, and it's definitely what you're saying is definitely the smart thing for, at least in sci-fi and fantasy. I don't know about some of the other genres. I think romance is probably the same, so I think it's across the board.
It's one of those things where, I mean, it really depends on what your objective is with your career. If you want to be a full-time indie writer, it would be best if you write in series. But you're going to have a hell of a time establishing a career just writing standalones. You can. I'm sure you can. There's almost certainly someone out there who has done it. But, I mean, would you rather try and do this, swim from here to Cuba with just yourself, or would you rather do it with a 10,000 weight on your back? Your choice. I'm probably going to die on the way no matter what because I suck at swimming, but indie authoring, it's kind of like that. You can set the advantages for you and in your favor, or you can do it, against the headwind. Up to you. If you only care about doing it because you love your books and you want to write those standalones and you don't care about making a living, hey, no big deal. Do whatever you want. But if you're trying to figure out how to calculate this so that you can make the most amount of money and do this as a professional writer, you've got to take the business concerns into account. And writing series is a business concern. It's never been an issue for me because I love writing series. I love reading series. And when I got to the end of Girl in the Box, I could have ended it if I hadn't had like 10,000 great ideas to keep going. It didn't bother me to keep doing it. If you're the type of person that it does, that's going to be your choice. Do you want to write standalones so bad that you're willing to, do this as a part-time gig? Then, hey, cool. More power to you. I applaud you in your artistic integrity. But know it going in.
Now, I had one more question for you. I can't help but notice over your shoulder all the stuff you got there. Is that a treadmill desk behind you? Yeah,
that is a treadmill desk behind me.
Now, do you actually use it for writing, or is it decoration? Because if I had one, it would be there to hang my clothes.
Yeah, no, I actually do use it as best I can. So I didn't today, but I did an hour on it yesterday. I had a hip injury earlier this year, and so I'm coming back to it a little more slowly. But yeah, I try and do my first hour when I'm writing on the treadmill because I usually can get about 3,000 words in during that time because that seems to make everything flow faster.
Did you say 3,000 words in the first hour?
Yeah. I plotted.
You.
I heard you had. I think I saw on Twitter you had the lady who wrote 2K to 10K on last week or something.
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah.
Claren, yeah.
Yeah, and one of her points is you kind of have an idea of what you're going to write before you start. I read a blog post or an essay by her. I bought the book, but probably a couple years ago. And so, I mean, I do the I try and have an idea. Like, I don't plot it out in a ton of detail, but I have an idea of, like, what are the next couple of scenes I'm going to write? What do I have to do? And so I have the outline, like, just the bare, like, one-sentence scratch of this is what's going to happen, and then I just sort of take it from there. And if I've got 3 or 4 sentences of that before I get on the treadmill in the morning, I can just kind of let it go. And yeah, I do about 3,000 words in an hour.
I have a treadmill desk as well, and I would have used it, but I took an arrow to the knee, and I haven't been able to since. So
That's a common problem. Usually it happens more in Skyrim, but yeah, no, I can see
It
that.
can happen. It can happen, Robert. I don't want to lie to you that there are rogue areas going around stopping authors from being healthy.
Where do you live so I can avoid the hell out of that place?
Australia, you probably do want to avoid it because everything here
Avoid
went
that place
will
anyway,
and
yeah.
can kill you.
I was going to say, I think that
I was
essay
just walking
on my blog that Trish read off earlier, there's a line in there about how this publishing environment is so hostile, it's like Australia. Because
Yeah,
I read
there
that.
was.
I read that
I
and
got-
laughed. I read that and laughed the other day when I was having a look at your website, and it's true. I was walking to school the other day, and this ancient lizard/snake-like beast was asleep on the friggin' bridge as I was just walking through an urban center, and it was like, I don't even know what you are, and you're gonna kill me. I'm out of here.
And yeah, you
Things
don't.
Do you immediately think that would make a great erotica story?
Lizard slash. It was just some ancient beast that had like birthed itself upon an overpass for no reason. That's Australia, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, wow. That's it sounds a little like Middle Earth, but with accents.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Do we have any more
Flaming
questions?
arrows. Yeah, we've got one from the website. They're asking whether you use beta readers in your process. I believe you said on your website that you do.
I have. I've had to. I went into consultations with a law firm here recently because I had to do some work on my LLC and some other stuff. Yeah, it's so much fun. That's why I'm actually redoing my books, because I had to do some stuff to bring it in streamline with what they told me. And one of the things they were like is, this is kind of a liability for you using beta readers. So my answer would be, yeah, you're fine. Just go ahead and use them. Apparently I'm not allowed to right now, but yeah, absolutely. I've used beta readers. I've had great luck with them. The biggest thing is, make sure they're people you trust, because I've had other friends who've had a beta reader before who have taken their work and published it on a pirate site, which great feeling came along with that. I sent it to 5 beta readers and it's already up on a pirate site. Okay,
Yeah,
then.
I've heard of that
Well,
before too.
yeah. So, no, I've used betas. There are some really, really good betas out there. I had a great crop, and I was sorry when the lawyers gave me the advice, because they found a lot of errors in my work. I mainly use them, and this is just for me, I mainly use them to find errors. They were there for error correction mostly. I didn't do like content editing. They weren't like, this scene is just horrible, move it to the front of the book. This whole plot line is terrible. No, they just did mostly the grammar and error, because I'm sad I have a degree in English, but I'm not really that good at that.
So they were more like proofreaders then?
Yeah, they did that. I mean, but they would also tell me, we really liked the book. Because
Okay.
my ego demanded absolute acclaim, and if I heard anything bad, they were off the team.
There you go.
You didn't know if I'm kidding or not. That's the funny part.
Are they allowed to make eye contact with you? Is that one of the rules, or?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Do we have any more questions, or shall we move on to this?
What is the surprise? What is the surprise?
Well,
Go ahead, Carl.
Why don't you let me explain this, because I think it's going to come a little bit better if I kind of explained what happened. Okay, so we woke up this morning to an email from Carl that basically said that with the books coming out and the new baby and him going back to full-time at the job, he wasn't going to have time to do the podcast anymore, which was followed by an email from Kevin saying that, yeah, with the Kindle Unlimited apocalypse and him working full-time, he was going to be too busy writing to have time for the podcast anymore, which followed with one from John, and basically the whole podcast fell apart in about, 2 hours. And so I gave it a lot of thought, and and decided that I'm going to try to keep running it basically by myself, but with some major changes. I am going to look at it bringing in maybe another co-host, and we'll be changing the format so it will not be just interviews. There'll be maybe 2 interviews a month, but then we'll be doing some roundtable discussions with other authors on hot topics like Kindle Unlimited and newsletters and things like this. Now the question is really how long I'll be able to handle this on my own. So it's not a sure thing that this podcast is going to continue indefinitely, but I will try to keep running it for as long as I possibly can.
And people might not realize, but behind the scenes I've done a lot of the administration and other work on the show since pretty much the beginning. And I will be doing a full handover with Trish and going through everything with her to help her transition for the time being, and get her set up and ready to go. So it won't be a train wreck or anything. Like, she knows what she's doing. She's a smart lady, and we will make sure that, for the time being at least, that the show will continue in some form and another. And it's not something that I took lightly. It's something I've been thinking about for a while, and things have just been getting worse and worse. And I've got some pretty strict time frames on writing, and it was taking up sometimes up to 10 hours a week, and I just don't have that time right now to continue, which is a shame, because I think, considering the show started as a joke over a year ago, it's become something that a lot of people appreciate and a lot of people like, and I really think that we've built something really great here, and to have this many people show up every week and download the show every week on iTunes and watch every week on YouTube is testament to everyone that's been involved in the show. So I wanted to thank all of the viewers and all of the co-hosts for everything. And I'm sure I will see you all around. But yeah, for the time being...
I wanted to say thank you to you, Carl, too, because, as you said, it was a joke, but that joke sure turned into something pretty special, really. And I really appreciate what you did, and all the hosts that we had previous, and with, John and Trish and Kevin, and meeting some really, really great people. As I said in the email earlier today, it's actually absolutely amazing, and my son will even test this, that I became friends with a guy from Australia who, if it hadn't been for this, I wouldn't even known. So you guys are all awesome, and I want to thank the viewers, too, because our viewers have been really, really cool. And hopefully, as Trish morphs this, hopefully it continues to go, because I think there is a need for it in the community. But it's been really great being part of this ride. And kind of a weird morning for me. I woke up being on the West Coast here. All these guys write emails before me, well, except for Trish, and John and Carl had already gone. I'm like, what the hell's going on? So, but thank you guys very much. It's been really cool.
I just want to say thank you to the viewers for listening, obviously, and thank you to Carl and Trish for deciding to bring me aboard. And then it's been great to be on here with Wade and John and Trish and Carl. It's been a great fun ride, but I need to start making some serious money.
I want to make it clear that it's not Robert's fault. He has not killed the podcast for anyone. He's done a lot of bad things in his life, but yeah, it wasn't his fault. I'm joking. John, do you have any words of mourning to share with everyone?
No, I just want to thank all the viewers who put up with us from our crazy beginnings to when we actually developed a show that was worth watching. And I've met a lot of great friends through this podcast and the comments on our website. And I've enjoyed talking to all of you. And we're not going anywhere. You can still keep in touch with us through all the channels that we normally speak on. And I look forward to seeing where Trish is going to take the show. I'm excited. I think it's going to be a great thing, what she's going to do.
Yeah, me too. I think Trish is going to do a great job.
She's going to do a great job for sure.
So on that downer, should we invite these people in for an after party so they can thank us personally for all of the amazing things that we've done to change their lives? Me
Or
especially.
tell us how we ruined their lives. I mean,
Yeah.
Would Robert like to join the after party as well?
Would you like to come into our after party, Robert, and have a chat to some of our viewers, see if there's any more questions for you?
Yeah, I'm
not-
sure they'll
not
really be glad to see me since I killed the podcast.
That's why we want you to come. Everyone can finally have they can say what they really want to say.
Go out on a low note with me. Okay, no, I'm fine with the after party. Cool.
All right. Well, Kevin's put an after party message on the website, and I guess please do continue leaving reviews and liking videos, etc. Because Trish will do an amazing job with the show moving forward, and you never know. I'm sure in the future, one or more of us may pop up from time to time if Trish wants to have us on when we have the time. And for the last time, for now anyway, say hi to your mums for me, guys.